I'm sorry, who are you again? That was Leo's first sentence to me. Not hello, not nice to meet you, not thanks for holding the department together, while this company was busy cycling through 4 CFOs and a sexual harassment lawsuit. Just a bleached white smile, an expensive watch I'm 90% sure was leased, and that goddamn question. I should have known then, right then. This man had the subtlety of a PowerPoint animation and the moral spine of a wet paper straw. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I always do, that's my problem. Compliance officers are trained to believe in systems. If you document everything, follow the chain, and triple-check the footnotes, eventually merit rises. Right, yeah. And eventually my cat's gonna stop judging me when I talk to my wine. Leo Tannen, Director of Strategic Operations. No one could really define what the hell that meant. Arrived like a male pattern baldness version of a firework. He'd been brought in during the growth phase, which is exec code for shuffle titles, until the real talent either quits or forgets what power they had. His resume had enough buzzwords to cause a seizure. Synergy architect, change evangelist, interface steward. The man had 3 LinkedIn endorsements for gravity. Meanwhile, I was 8 years in. No yacht selfies, no rooftop launch parties. Just every policy, every risk log, every investor-ready document the company had ever sent out since we graduated from shared drives to cloud. I didn't need applause. I needed continuity. I needed things to work. But Leo needed to be seen. He started small, talking over me in weekly syncs, asking the same questions I'd answered 2 slides ago. Then it escalated. Deborah, could you take notes? Ring a call I had organized. A client memo I drafted suddenly stripped of my name when it circulated with his version of the logo in the header. We, he said in meetings. My team, when referencing policy structure I'd personally built from scratch. His voice smiled when he spoke. His eyes didn't. And hey, quick favor, since we're here and I'm mid-rant. If you're the kind of person who likes these stories, quiet women, loud receipts, justice without the cape or catchphrases, hit that little subscribe button. Maybe throw a like on this too. Apparently 93% of you listen without clicking anything, and the team who helps me get these stories out, they notice. And I promise it really keeps us going. Anyway, where were we? Ah yes, background noise, that's what he called me. Not to my face, of course, that would have required courage. No, it was on a thread he thought I wasn't looped into. Quick aside to the VP of Finance. Deborah's great at the details, but she's kind of background noise at these investor meetings. We'll take it from here. I didn't respond. I just read it twice. Once, as the woman who'd written every word of the investor compliance packet, he was now shopping around like it came from his brain. And again, as the employee who just had her visibility formally downgraded to white noise. What made it worse was how smooth it all looked. The outside, it was seamless, Leo nodding thoughtfully during presentations, using my language verbatim, even adding his own little flair like compliance-forward architecture, which, by the way, means absolutely nothing. It was strategic erasure. A scalpel, not a sledgehammer. Still, I tried not to let it show. Kept doing the work. Kept the paper trail neat. People forget, but metadata never does. The thing about background noise, Leo, is that it's always on. Just don't notice it until the silence hits. The first time I saw the investor deck with my work gutted of attribution, I thought it was a mistake. It was a Tuesday, the kind of gray, bland day that smells like burnt coffee and existential dread. I logged into the shared drive for the final compliance memo we'd been polishing for 3 weeks. I'd written every line of it, backed it with months of regulatory logs, SEC guidance, enough internal audit trails to make a Swiss accountant weep. But there it was. The header had changed. The formatting had been given Leo's signature branding refresh, which is corporate for slapping on an overpriced font and murdering readability. But the words, my words, remained. Paragraph by paragraph, citation by citation, all intact, except one thing was missing. My name, where it used to say prepared by Deborah H. Sinclair, compliance officer, now said nothing. Blank, erased like a dirty word. For a second, I actually laughed. Thought maybe someone hit the wrong template. Maybe Leo had just forgotten to version it correctly before the review meeting. Maybe the sky was still blue and not just a shade of middle-aged disappointment. Then I opened the revision history. There it was. Leo, 10 p.m. the night before. He'd manually deleted the footer. Overwritten the author field in the metadata, added his executive summary at the top. Basically a string of business platitudes stitched together like a quilt made of gaslighting. That laugh died real quick. I stared at the screen like it had slapped me. 8 years of playing clean. 8 years of writing memos with surgical precision, so no investor could ever say we didn't anticipate a risk. And now, this self-styled show, Pony had stripped me out like moldy insulation and waltzed off to present my brain in his voice. I wanted to march into the meeting room and slam the hard copy down like a gavel. But I didn't. I took a breath. I emailed myself the original file, downloaded the audit log, printed a time-stamped version, still bearing my name, and slid it into my desk drawer. That afternoon, we filed into conference room B. Leo had his laptop open, wireless clicker in hand, wearing that smug cologne that always smelled like insecurity and peppermint. VP of Strategy, 2 analysts, and a representative from Rothman Capital were dialed in over Zoom, their tiny faces glowing like judgmental paperweights on the screen. Leo began his little theater performance. "We've developed a forward-facing compliance posture," he said. I'd written that line 3 weeks ago at 2:17 a.m. in pajama pants, half drunk on cold brew and spite. Anticipates regulatory overlays and builds investor confidence through granular audit transparency. Every word mine. The Rothman guy, Stuart something, buttoned up, no-nonsense type, tilted his head and interrupted. "Just curious who authored the memo. It's quite robust." There it was. That moment. The universe tossing Leo a loaded question and watching what kind of mess he'd make with it. Leo smiled, that oily, teeth-showing smile he thought passed for confidence. "My team pulled it together," he said, without missing a beat. And then this part burned. He turned toward me, made eye contact, and nodded like I was the intern who fetched his printer toner. I smiled back, wide, just shy of homicidal. The meeting continued. Questions, feedback, polite clapping. But I didn't hear any of it. All I heard was the silence that came from being erased in plain sight. Not criticized, not corrected, erased. That's worse. That's someone reaching inside your work and deleting the fingerprints. I walked back to my desk after the call, locked eyes with the framed ethics charter Leo had demanded we hang on the hallway wall: integrity, transparency, accountability, and nearly gagged. Later that night, I poured myself a glass of Pinot, sat in the dark with my cat, and reread the original memo. My name was still there. It just wasn't enough anymore to know the truth. I'd have to prove it. Really want to die on this hill? That's what Connor from finance whispered to me 2 days later while we stood in line for coffee. He said it like he was offering me a life raft, like he was being the reasonable one. And to be fair, he was. In Connor's world, strategic silence was just savvy career planning. Don't fight the current, float with it until your RSU's vest and your LinkedIn glows. He's tight with the VP, Connor added, tapping his badge for a free latte. You know that, right? They go back. Business school, fantasy football, quarterly ski trips. I've seen the group chat. You make waves now and you're going to get labeled. I didn't ask what label. I knew difficult, disruptive, rigid, bitter. All the names women get when they dare to claim authorship of their own damn work. The thing is, I did think about letting it go. Really. I sat at my desk that night with my HR portal open, looking at the countdown to my stock vesting. 6 weeks, just 6. After that, I could coast, cash out, maybe even walk away with a year's salary and a half-burnt bridge. I wasn't here for ego. I didn't need applause. I needed to not go broke trying to prove a point. And Leo, he was just a haircut with ambition. A peacock in a suit. His type always burns out eventually. Why not just wait him out? Let the performance collapse under its own weight. But then, open the newest version of the investor packet. I don't know what I expected. A cleaner layout, a few less commas. Maybe he'd moved my appendix table to a prettier spot. But what I found, he'd rewritten sections of the legal risk disclosures. And I don't mean reworded. I mean rewired. Entire paragraphs neutered of regulatory phrasing I had fought to get approved, scrubbed of specificity, turned into glossy marketing slogans, changed in compliance with Section 206 of the Investment Advisors Act to an alignment with industry expectations. I stared at that sentence like it had personally insulted my grandmother. That one clause had taken me 3 rounds of legal review, a 30-minute call with our SEC consultant, and 2 weeks of research. It mattered. It protected us. It protected investors. And now it was gone, sanded down into ambiguity because Leo thought compliance language kills momentum. That was the moment. The moment I realized this wasn't just about my name. This was about liability. This was about erasing the scaffolding and selling the facade. And if someone like Leo was left alone with that facade, it would crack. Not today, not next week, but eventually. And when it did, they'd come looking for the woman who should have said something. So no, I couldn't let it go. At night, I stayed late, lights low, office empty except for the hum of the janitor's cart 2 halls over. I printed the original memo, the version with the correct legal language, the embedded author metadata, the archive stamp. Then I printed the revised one, Leo's Frankenstein. Side by side, they looked like 2 versions of reality, one airtight, one shiny and flammable. I clipped them together, wrote the date on a post-it, sealed them in a manila envelope, wrote for Archive Policy Integrity Review on the front, slipped it into the physical compliance drawer I managed, the one no one but me had ever bothered to organize. Then I opened a new document. No formatting, no flourishes, just plain, ugly text. Documentation of edits to investor packet compliance risk notes. I typed for 2 hours. Listed every edit, every removed clause, every reworded risk. Cross-referenced each one with regulatory guidance. Cited sources. Dropped links. When I finished, I sent it to my personal email, encrypted with a passphrase no one would guess unless they'd been in the room when my mother died. I blind CC'd legal with a subject line so boring they'd probably ignore it. Change tracking log, Q3 drafts. Then I sat back, closed my laptop, and stared out the window. Let it go? No. Letting it go would have been easier. But Leo didn't just take my words. Took the brakes off a vehicle he didn't know how to drive. And if he wanted to ride it into a wall, I was damn sure going to leave a copy of the manual taped to the wreckage. You ever sign something so quietly, so deliberately, it feels like a threat wrapped in manners? That's what it felt like, dragging my cursor across the bottom of the revised investor memo and embedding my digital signature, time-stamped, encrypted, and irrevocable. Not a scream. Not a warning shot. Just a signature. The kind that gets people subpoenaed when everything goes sideways. Leo didn't know it yet, but he was building his little sandcastle on top of a live minefield, and I wasn't going to stop him. I was just going to label the explosives. The submission deadline for the investor memo was 3 p.m., Friday. At 2:07, I downloaded the final draft, his version, of course. Full of shine, stripped of substance. I didn't change a single word. Let the record show I was not insubordinate. I was meticulous, compliant, the good little soldier. But before that document left the building, I added one thing, my signature. Not just the name at the bottom, though I included that, Deborah H. Sinclair, compliance officer in my usual Garamond 11. No, I embedded my encrypted credential signature block into the document metadata, what IT calls a fingerprint hash, what legal calls a digital paper trail that makes liars cry. It took 2 minutes. Click, confirm, passphrase. And just like that, the memo had a heartbeat, my heartbeat. Then I stood up, walked to the printer, and made a hard copy. There's something sacred about paper. It doesn't glitch, doesn't update overnight, doesn't get overwritten by some overcaffeinated product manager at 2 a.m., it stays. So I printed the full memo, a thick ivory stock we keep locked in the cabinet for board packets. I signed the last page in blue ink, wet signature, visible pressure marks. Folded the pages into a folder. Labeled it manually in red pen, Investor Readiness Final Version Q3. Took the stairs to the compliance archive, bottom floor, past the server room that smells like ozone and bad decisions. Pulled out drawer B17, slid the folder in behind the last board-approved policy packet, and logged the entry into our archive register. Date, time, title, signed. No one asked me to, no one had to. It's what I do. It's what I've always done. On the way back upstairs, I paused in the break room. Leo was in there, charming someone from HR with his usual verbal glitter. We're building a narrative investors can believe in, he said, like we were writing a Marvel origin story and not a legally binding compliance packet. I walked past without looking at him. Back at my desk, I opened a fresh email. Addressed it to legal, not Leo, not the VP, just legal. Subject line, change tracking protocol Q3 memo. Body, hi, team. Per Section 5.2 of the Compliance Documentation Lifecycle, this message serves as confirmation that standard version tracking protocols have been completed on the Q3 Investor Readiness Memo. Encrypted signature embedded. Hard copy archived per Archival Policy 3.4. Let me know if you need access to the signed version. Thanks, Deborah. I blind CC'd my personal email. Not because I didn't trust legal, because trusting institutions blindly is how you end up testifying in a deposition wondering when the ground disappeared. Then I shut my monitor off and went home. No fireworks, no drama, just the satisfying weight of knowing that no matter how many meetings Leo hijacked, no matter how many smirks he flashed like fake credentials, the one thing he couldn't fake was a signature. Mine. It wasn't revenge. It was insurance. Because I wasn't planning to stop him. I was planning to outlast him. By the following week, I wasn't invited to any investor prep calls. The calendar used to ping like a microwave, investor session draft review, cue, and a rehearsal, final strategy huddle. Now, radio silence. Leo had done what all smooth-talking opportunists do best. He repackaged someone else's expertise, stapled his name to the cover, and airbrushed me out like a blemish in a corporate headshot. I asked about the missing invites. Leo smiled like I just asked him to read me a bedtime story. "Oh, you're swamped with internal compliance stuff, right?" he said like it was a compliment. "Didn't want to overload you. We've got the external optics handled." Translation: we've got the part that matters to people who make decisions, and you're too inconvenient to include. I nodded, smiled, back to my desk, and opened a fresh Word doc titled Investor Prep Exclusion Internal Record. Date, time, subject lines of missing invites, brief notes on prior contributions, and a screenshot of our company directory still listing me as lead on external audit comms. I dropped it into my encrypted folder. Another receipt for the pile. That's when Lydia, one of our junior analysts, pinged me on Teams. Just a short message. "Lydia M., hey. Just FYI, Leo told the board he designed the new compliance architecture. Said it was a top-down overhaul. Thought you should know." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed thanks, deleted it, typed appreciate it, deleted that too. Finally, I sent Deborah S. logged good to know. Because what do you even say to that? I sat there staring at the screen, pulse steady but cold. Let me tell you something about compliance architecture. You don't just design it. You live in it. You tweak it every time a regulation shifts, every time a vendor changes, every time the SEC sneezes in your direction. The structure Leo was bragging about, that wasn't a framework, that was me. 8 years of audit logs, approval pathways, documentation trees, and escalation protocols. I didn't just build that system, I was that system. Now he was standing in front of people who controlled our funding, claiming he'd architected it between golf lessons and overpriced dinners. The pressure started to hum beneath everything. Not panic, not fear, just a quiet, relentless compression. Like trying to breathe through a pillow someone keeps pressing harder and harder against your face. He wasn't just cutting me out, he was retrofitting the past. And the worst part, no one was stopping him. The VP, who used to flag me for every change, suddenly started looping Leo into confidential chains first. My daily reports, unacknowledged. My edits to the upcoming compliance calendar, overwritten, then republished under Leo's name. At one point, I caught a Slack message in the compliance general thread. "Leo T. Let's remember, clarity wins trust. We're rewriting the narrative from a leadership lens." Leadership lens? My God, I didn't respond. I opened another document. This one, leadership claims attribution conflicts. I pasted every quote, date-stamped every file where authorship had been stripped or rebranded. Saved a screenshot of the board meeting agenda listing Leo Tannen compliance overhaul update. They say when someone's polishing a gun, you don't stop them. You just get out of the way and make sure the fingerprints are visible when it goes off. So I kept working, quietly, thoroughly. I reviewed every change he made, logged every deviation from regulatory phrasing. Even the subtle ones, the way he swapped shall for should, or must for ought to, those matter, a lot. I didn't try to confront him, didn't even try to get my meetings back, because this wasn't about inclusion anymore. This was about evidence. And when the shot finally rang out, when the bullet of his ego hit the wall, I was going to be holding the audit trail. The call started like any other high-stakes investor charm offensive, faux-friendly greetings, mutual flattery, half-smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes. Leo sat in the driver's seat, decked out in his usual navy blue leadership shirt, no tie, just enough stubble to look accidental. He'd practiced this look, practiced every pause, every phrase. His favorite word lately was narrative. I wasn't on camera. I wasn't on mic either. Technically, I was attending, looped in as a background observer. You know, just in case someone needed a policy pulled or a regulation cited. But no one would. Leo had assured everyone the materials were locked and loaded. So there I sat, third row in the Zoom attendee list, sandwiched between a marketing coordinator and an intern who'd probably clicked the wrong link. My screen was black. My mic was muted by the host. I could see everything, but say nothing. Yo clicked through the deck like a game show host with something to prove. Slide 6 outlines our newly enhanced compliance structure, he said, tapping his clicker like it could trigger applause. What we've done here is really lean into investor transparency by consolidating policy language into modular frameworks. Translation. I deleted the nuance and made it sound expensive. He was halfway through mangling a summary of our risk mitigation pathways when it happened. Stewart, an investor from Rothman Capital, the kind of guy who chews pens and remembers every line he's ever read, leaned forward on his screen and narrowed his eyes. Sorry, can we pause for a second? Leo's voice stuttered into silence. Of course. What's on your mind? Stewart squinted, scrolling through the shared doc. This clause on page 12, subject to review under subsection 9F of the Risk Escalation Charter. Who authored that? The room went still. Actually heard someone shift in their chair on camera. That clause had been hell. It was buried in a subregulation no one, but me, ever bothered to track. I dug it up after a late-night panic over conflicting vendor protocols and reworded it to thread the needle between transparency and liability. That line was mine. Leo smiled like a man picking a wire he really hoped wasn't live. That came from, well, our team collaboratively. Can you scroll down a sec? Stewart cut in, just to the footer of that page. Zoom in, please. Leo hesitated, one beat too long, then he scrolled, slowly, like he already knew what was waiting. Bottom right, small gray text, almost invisible. Document author Deborah H. Sinclair, compliance officer signature. Verified digital timestamp. 08:12 a.m., August 14. No one spoke. Leo's cursor hovered near the scroll bar like it was searching for an escape hatch. Stewart leaned back. So Miss Sinclair authored the clause. Leo chuckled weakly, trying to recover. Well, Deborah's been involved in some of the groundwork over the years. But the strategy is something Stewart interrupted again. Right, because in the email thread from earlier this month, I believe you referred to her as background noise. He said it casually, like he was ordering a sandwich. Just wondering if you'd like to repeat that with her on the line. Leo's mouth opened, closed. The camera caught him blinking fast, eyes darting towards someone off-screen. His throat moved, but no sound came out. And then the chat lit up. Connor F., flushed face Lydia M. Holy SHD Legal Watcher 01. Please confirm their data auth board admin 2. Pause call. I didn't move, didn't speak. Just sat there, staring at the little line of text that had undone all of his polish in 4 words. Document author, Deborah H. Sinclair. He could talk around me. He could exclude me. He could rewrite history for every boardroom that never bothered to ask questions. But he couldn't overwrite the signature. I watched his eyes flicker toward the camera, looking for a rescue that wasn't coming. And in that silence, thick, electric, and beautifully earned, I finally felt what 8 years of invisible work had bought me. Not revenge. Proof. It was a pause so thick you could have poured it into a mold and sold it as regret. Leo's lips were parted like he'd just inhaled a wasp. The lead investor, Stewart, God bless his cold-blooded poker face, didn't blink. Just leaned in a bit closer to his camera, that corporate smirk widening like he'd just sunk the 8-ball blindfolded. Director, he said smoothly, mind repeating your comment from the email thread? The one about background noise. Oh, knew exactly what he was doing. Leo's eyes darted fast, up, down, left, right, like a man trying to spot the fire exit in a windowless room. He smiled reflexively, desperately, but it didn't reach anything above the chin. For a second, I thought he might actually try it. Try to bluff his way out. Say it was a joke, a misquote, maybe even AI-generated. But then he caught a glimpse of his own screen. The chat was lighting up. Investor Rothman 3. Is this the same clause cited in the August briefing? Legal Watcher 01. Can we confirm authorship across all policy docs? Board Admin 2. Did we circulate a forged version of this file? Connor F. Popcorn gif, and then came the quiet gut punch. Leo's phone, resting neatly beside his iced Americano, lit up with a message. He made the mistake of glancing at it mid-call. Everyone saw the expression drain from his face. Legal private. Did you forge attribution? Reply immediately. He didn't move, he couldn't. The man was pinned to his own fiction. And me? I didn't say a word because I didn't have to. I just sat there in the attendee list, no mic, no camera, no spotlight, watching the invisible strings pull tighter around him with every passing second. Watching a man who thought branding was stronger than truth get smothered by metadata. This wasn't revenge. This was gravity. Eventually, everything falls where it belongs. You could hear his breath catch on the mic. He started to speak. I think there's been some confusion, but Stewart cut him off with the practiced grace of a man who's gutted more than a few overconfident founders. No confusion, he said. The document speaks for itself. So does the audit log. So do the signatures. What we'd like clarity on now is who has final compliance authority at Alarian. Because based on what I'm seeing, it's not you. Leo didn't respond. The mic captured a long exhale and nothing else. More chat messages popped up. I didn't read them all, but I saw the tone shift. No more emojis. Just curt legal phrases. Audit trail. Verification. Liability. I leaned back in my chair, folded my hands, and stared at my screen. 8 years of footnotes, red lines, regulatory addendums. 8 years of being told to stay in my lane. Just send the doc over so someone else could present it with their voice and my work. And now, all that quiet, methodical record-keeping had teeth. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just let the paper do the talking. The irony, if he'd just left my name on the damn thing, he might have skated through. But no, he had to scrub me out, had to call me noise. He never understood what background noise really is. It's constant. It's foundational. Doesn't stop just because you stop noticing it. And when everything else goes quiet, it's the only thing left standing. By the next morning, Leo's name had been quietly removed from the compliance document repository permissions. No memo, no grand announcement. Just a blink and you miss it line in the admin log. Access revoked Tananel, 07:46 a.m. It sat between automated database pings and a stale Jenkins deployment notice. To anyone paying attention, it was louder than a public firing. He was still technically employed, still sending carefully neutral Slack messages to his direct reports, but everyone could smell it, like the ozone before a thunderstorm. The kind of silence that meant HR had been looped in, and legal was sharpening its teeth. The VP of Strategic Ops, the same man who used to blind forward Leo's updates without a second glance, stopped by my desk that afternoon. He stood there awkwardly, one hand on his hip like a dad who didn't know how to apologize. Deborah, he started, the board wants a direct compliance briefing ahead of next week's investor closeout. I looked up slowly, letting the pause stretch just enough. Am I presenting someone else's slides, I asked, or my own work? His smile didn't quite land. Yours, entirely yours. I gave a small nod and turned back to my monitor. No, I told you so. No celebratory mic drop. Just quiet satisfaction layered beneath every keystroke. A woman asked to re-enter the room she'd never truly left, except now, no one dared call her background noise. Over the next few days, my inbox transformed. Hey, looping Deborah in for review. Deborah, can you confirm the wording here? Let's have Deborah take lead on that draft. No fanfare. Just respect, stripped of theatrics. Which is exactly how I liked it. Lydia, junior analyst, dropped by with a venti coffee she didn't owe me. No note, just a sheepish smile and a whispered, they're saying you single-handedly saved the investor deal. I shrugged. I just signed the document. We both laughed. She knew, they all knew now. When I opened the updated briefing deck for the next investor session, it was the same structure, but the credits slide had returned. This time, unambiguous. Compliance strategy and documentation prepared by Deborah H. Sinclair, compliance officer, no footnotes, no team assisted, no watered-down attribution. I printed the slide out on matte cardstock and tacked it beside my monitor, not out of vanity, but as a reminder. Not just to me, but to every rotating VP, every brand-happy director who thought polish could outshine provenance. Later that week, Stewart, the lead investor, emailed me directly. Just 2 lines, appreciate the clarity. Looking forward to your walkthrough. He didn't copy Leo. He didn't copy anyone. And when the calendar invite hit, it was addressed to Investor Briefing led by Deborah Sinclair. Not featuring, led by. On the day of the call, I wore the same black blazer I'd had since year 2. No glam, no sparkle. Just pressed professionalism and a full binder of materials I knew better than my own heartbeat. No one muted me. No one bypassed my mic. When I spoke, the silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was intentional. People were listening. I walked them through every policy clause, every risk adjustment, every regulation woven into the packet. When I finished, Stewart leaned back in his chair, hands folded. We invest in clarity, he said, and people who sign what they write. I didn't need to say anything. I just nodded once. On my way out of the conference room, I passed the glass hallway where old investor memos were framed for show. Someone had updated the wall during the week. The Q3 packet, my packet, now hung dead center. Bottom right corner, crisp font, visible even through the glass, signed Deborah H. Sinclair. I didn't touch it, didn't need to. My name was where it belonged. And this time, no one could erase it. The follow-up session started in a quiet no one dared disturb. No icebreakers, no chuckles. As 25 rectangular faces in a Zoom gallery, every one of them waiting for me to speak. I adjusted the mic, clicked to full screen, and opened with a single slide. The finalized compliance framework, signed, sealed, archived. The same policy Leo had tried to bleach clean of my name. Now canon, now standard. We'll walk through the Q3 compliance posture, I said, voice level. You'll find each clause annotated with corresponding regulatory mappings. For transparency, author metadata is embedded throughout. No flair, no filler, just truth sharpened and polished like a blade. I guided them through every module: data sovereignty, vendor escalation paths, internal audit loops. I cited statutes without glancing down. I quoted policy line numbers from memory. When one of the Rothman Juniors asked a question about indemnity clauses, I walked him straight to the language I'd written 3 fiscal years ago, explained how it evolved with SEC Bulletin 23-04. Halfway through, someone tried to loop Leo in. I watched as Leo Tannen is waiting to join flickered at the top of the screen, then vanished. Someone, probably legal, had declined him. I didn't pause, just kept going. The ghost of him hovered, but it didn't land. He was already fading from relevance. After 40 minutes, we closed the last section. The investors were silent, not out of confusion, but focus. Then Stuart unmuted himself. That same quiet voice that once unraveled Leo now cut the silence clean. We invest in clarity, he said, same as before, and in people who sign what they write. He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. It was already carved into the foundation. I gave a small nod, then ended the screen share. The call ended a minute later with quiet goodbyes and 1 or 2 thank yous. No applause, no fanfare, just something heavier: respect. I closed my laptop and exhaled for what felt like the first time in a month. Later that afternoon, while walking past the lobby monitor, the one that flashes company announcements, birthdays, shout-outs for hitting KPIs, I saw something new. Organizational changes updated org chart now live curious. I tapped the screen. Searched by last name, Tannen. No results found. That's it, I thought. No exit memo. No email blast. Deleted, same way he'd done to me, only now with more precision and a lot less ceremony. I walked past the glass hallway on my way out. The framed memos were still there, still untouched by corporate turnover. But now, the Q3 investor briefing hung dead center, printed on the same thick ivory stock I'd signed by hand. At the bottom, beneath the policy title and audit seal, in font cleaner than anything Leo had ever clicked. Signed, Deborah H. Sinclair. No one said a word as I walked by. No one smirked. No one muttered admin work under their breath, because now they all understood I wasn't background noise. I was the signal that cut through it. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.